So let's meet Stella. We're going to go to Belgium. So originally from Belgium, Stella studied biology and has worked on a range of projects in the field in conservation and ecology. Following an unexpected encounter with a whale shark back in Madagascar in 2014, Stella started investigating their presence in this unstudied area. A few years later, her team at the Madagascar Whale Shark Project has identified more than 400 juvenile whale sharks off North-Western Madagascar, which have never been observed anywhere else in the world. So a unique population. That's so cool. I'm going to bring Stella in with us. Hey, Stella, how are you?
Hi, Joe. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you. It's been a while since we've been in one of these calls.
I'm still in Belgium. Nothing has changed, but soon vaccinated, hopefully, and soon able to return. Yeah.
Excellent. I'm sure you're itching to get back to see
Yes.
what's going on with the population. So I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to let you take over for a little bit, and we'll see if we have some questions.
Sounds good. Just let me know if there's any internet issues, because I had some this morning. It should be solved now.
All right. Sounds good.
Is this working? Just getting this up. All good?
Looks good, Stella.
Joe?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay. So sadly, I'm not in the field to show you how amazing it looks. So I'll just show some pictures and videos and explain you a bit about my journey as a scientist and then how I ended up working on these amazing animals in Madagascar. So initially, like Joe said, I'm a biologist. I trained in the field a lot as a conservation biologist and worked on various projects on baboons, on ocean plastic. That was when this picture was taken. And eventually I ended up in Madagascar now 10 years ago for the first time. That's me dressed as a coral reef. It was one of the ways to raise awareness about coral reefs that we chose to use back then in the field. And it really, changed my life to experience the challenges that people were facing there, and also I just wanted to help and go back there as a older person and scientist. So here I am. Yes, I'll explain you a bit more why it's so important to study whale sharks and so exciting. So Madagascar hosts an incredible biodiversity. I'm not going to go into this, but I'm sure you can find all the information online. It's got lemurs, chameleons. 90% of its fauna on land is endemic, but it also has an extremely diverse marine fauna and flora as well, including whale sharks. So here's a picture of a whale shark if you don't know what they look like. I'll speak a bit about why they're so amazing. So they're the world's biggest fish. So they're a fish and not a mammal. So they don't need to come back to the surface to breathe. They can stay underwater for months at a time sometimes. They have gills, as you can see on this picture, and the whole morphology is different. When they're born, they're very small. They're about 0.5 meter, and they can grow to 20 meters. That's the biggest whale shark that's ever been recorded. But in general, the ones we see are between 5 to 10 meters. They're very slow growing, so it's estimated they take 30 years to reach maturity. So that takes a while, and in the meantime, they can encounter a variety of threats in the ocean. And it's been shown recently through another paper that they can reach 150 years old. So really, really slow growing animal that, of course, we need to protect so it reaches maturity and can reproduce. Here's a little video to show you how whale shark feeds. So it's actually a plankton feeder. There's only 3 sharks in the whole shark family that do this. One of them is the whale shark. The other one is the basking shark. I think those 2 you might know. So what they do is they will filter water through their mouth, and then it goes out through the gills, like you see in this video. To do this, they usually adopt a vertical position, and whatever plankton or small fish that's in there, they will keep inside their mouth to digest it. So it's really a unique way of feeding, and it's also why we gave it that name, whale shark, because it's like whales feed by filter feeding water. So that means they're not dangerous like people think sharks are. That's another topic altogether, but whale sharks are absolutely not dangerous. They barely have teeth. They have microscopic teeth. And as a result, they're actually very friendly. They're very curious, docile, and that means often people seek interactions with them, and they are a great touristic asset for places like Madagascar. Sadly, it's also one of the reasons they are exposed to boat collisions and boat engines, as you can see on this picture. This was taken in Mexico by a colleague. Sometimes when people are swimming with whale sharks, people need to get to the whale sharks by boat, and that means they're exposed to the boat engines, and that can give rise to cuts, like you can see on the skin of this animal. As you can see, it's nearly cutting through the cartilage of the fish, and often it can even amputate some of their fins, meaning, they have a decreased chance of survival. That's one of the issues. I'm just going to talk about a few more so you understand exactly what's at stake. Another big issue is, of course, plastic pollution. So this happens quite regularly, but it's rarely kind of picked up by the news or that we know about, because whale sharks, they don't have bones like cetaceans. They have cartilage, so they tend to sink instead of float at the surface. So we rarely see dead whale sharks. But when we do, often, like in this particular example, they have plastic blocking their whole digestive system, which means they die. It's also a big problem for all other marine megafauna like manta rays, who also feed in the same way, filter feeding for whales, and also for all the other animals like dolphins and turtles, who get entangled often in plastic as well. And then finally, I'm just gonna, just look at the surface of this whole issue, because especially now with the new documentary Seaspiracy, you can find out more about all the issues surrounding fishing and shark finning. But for whale sharks specifically, especially those off Madagascar, bycatch by the tuna fishing boats is a big issue. In this particular picture, you can see the whale shark is out of the water already. Its gills are out of the water, so it's not in a good place. And often these sharks are caught in these enormous nets with tuna, because they're often found together, as you saw in the other picture. They feed on the same small plankton and fish, so often they're just targeted as well, or they end up there accidentally, and then it's usually a lot of hassle to get a whale shark out of a net. So by the time they're released, often it's too late. So all of these reasons combined have made the whale shark become an endangered species. So that was quite recent. It was just when I was starting to work on the species in 2016. And just before that, they were listed as vulnerable. So if you don't know anything about the IUCN Red List, I would really recommend looking into it. It's really interesting. It's basically a catalog of all the wild species in the world, and it will tell you for each species its status and just how endangered it is in the wild. As you can see on this little frame at the bottom, the whale shark is nearer the extinct part. So the next step for populations is to be critically endangered, which is really sad, which is pretty much like the vaquita now. So animals where only a few individuals exist, and then after that they disappear from the wild. They're kept in zoos, if that's possible, and then after that they just vanish from the earth or the ocean. So it's quite bad where whale sharks are currently, and that's one of the reasons that motivated me to start this project. So you're probably wondering, how did I end up doing this? So as Joe said, when I visited Madagascar again after my first visit there in 10 years ago now, I realized there was a little tourism industry going on in Nosy Be. So that's one of the capitals of tourism in Madagascar. So it's generally more developed than other places. And there were a few boats going out to look at whales. There's also whales migrating through, especially humpbacks. So it was a great hotspot to see marine megafauna. And people often were seeing whale sharks. So very simply, I asked if there was a project going on, and if there wasn't, whether there was something we could do. And we started thinking together with the boat operators, and that's how we realized that actually, if tourists are going in the water anyway to swim with these animals, how about we train them, or we train people on the boat and use the boat as a way in to access these animals and take pictures. Basically, whale sharks are really easy to study if you want to know the population size, the population structure, the population distribution. All these things are very easy to collect because you just need pictures of the spots. Actually, we call that photo identification. It's a well-known method in ecology, and basically you capture the same part of the animal each time, whether it's the same animal or a different individual, and that's like a fingerprint for us. And it means that way we can easily compare different individuals. So, for example, on this picture, it's a shark we know very well. He's called Ernest. We've seen him every year since 2015. And how do we know it's Ernest? Just by looking inside this red square, you will see this kind of a pattern, like a unique pattern, actually. And Ernest is the only shark in the world that has this pattern that you can see in this box. It probably looks very random as a pattern, but for us, we can tell it's him because of the lines and the combination of dots. It's what makes him unique. So that way we can track him over time pretty much. So each time we see a whale shark, we dive underwater. We use free diving only, so no scuba diving because it's just unpractical. And that way we collect the same kind of picture each time, which we then upload onto a global website that is open to anyone wanting to participate to whale shark science. Even you on a holiday, you can upload one of your pictures, whether it's the left side or right side of the shark. Here on these pictures, it's only the left side. It's called Wild Book for Whale Sharks or whaleshark.org. And that way, if, say, Ernest, which is the whale shark on the left here, has been seen again, maybe elsewhere, or again in Madagascar, we know it's him and we can track him over time and come up with a residency index and all these sorts of things. So here on this picture, you can see 3 different sharks. Some we only see once, some we see many times. I think Ernest, we've seen him more than 20 times now over the years. Some other sharks, like the middle one here, Michel, we've seen him 80 times now. So he's very resident and he keeps coming back. We also track the scars of each animal. So here it's just a little collection of some animals that have scars since we know them, and that makes it easier for us to recognize them instead of loading the picture onto the website each time. But it also shows you just how widespread the collisions with boat is. I think, according to our last publication that's in press now, it's about a third of all the whale sharks in Madagascar have scars. In some places, it's even higher. But it just shows you that even though we promote sustainable tourism, it still is a threat to them, and it can, alter their survival chances and also the way they move because they have less balance if one of their fins is amputated, for example. I forgot to say, whale sharks have names. It's something I like to do. It's just easier to remember them than using the data codes that you see after each name. So Michel, his data code is MD for Madagascar, and then 151 is the order when he was seen in the database, pretty much. So just from this method, we've identified more than 400 whale sharks, which is still to me unbelievable, because when I started in 2015 with the local operators, we thought there were maybe 10, 20, because some kept seeing whale sharks with scars, but actually different whale sharks can have the same scars. It just means they've been, exposed to the same threat, for example. We have a big paper coming out soon about this. And actually all of these whale sharks have never been seen elsewhere. So they only live in Madagascar. They use the area as juvenile whale sharks, needing energetic food to grow. And then usually after 8 meters, we don't see them anymore. So they migrate somewhere else, and they need different types of food to grow at that life stage. So they're probably between 15 and 20 years old when they're with us in Madagascar. So I'll just touch upon a few other things we did through the years. So one of the cool studies we did was to deploy satellite tags. So you can see on this picture that Shanti is one of the biggest sharks. So she's 7 meters with me. And on her, you see one of the small satellite tags we use. It's linked to the shark by a little rope. And that allows the tag, whenever the shark is near the surface, to float at the surface and communicate with the nearest satellite to give the exact location of the shark at that time. So it's a technique we use in whale shark science to basically assess just how resident the whale sharks are. So these are some of the results we gathered from the tags. So I'll just explain briefly, but basically the reddish areas, so the darker areas you see, are the places where the kernel density is higher, and that basically means where more whale sharks were seen at the surface, because the satellite tags, they don't give us any information underwater, they only work when they're above the water. So if the whale sharks are feeding more as they're feeding at the surface in Madagascar, we know they're using the area more. So basically that's an indication for us scientists that we need to protect this area, because it's really important for whale sharks because they feed more there. As we know, for whale sharks, it's really crucial, that life stage, kind of, we call it juvenile. So between 5 and 7 meters, it's the length we see for whale sharks in Madagascar. That's when they're feeding all the time because they need that food to grow. So as you can see on this map, there's really a whole area around Nosy, which is our study site that they use for feeding. And there's also a second place further south. We're still busy investigating that area because it's actually really remote. So you need a boat and a week to reach that area, and then you need to come back. And we know they've been using that area as well. So we're busy exploring that. And as you can see, there's other dots on the map that are lighter, and that means they're also feeding there, but a lot less. Other information from this map is also the green boxes here. So these are MPA, so marine protected areas. So really, it's the only type of protections that whale sharks have currently in Madagascar. That means if they're using these areas or found in these areas, then whenever they are in these areas, they are not targeted. They cannot be targeted for fishing. However, as you can see from the map, most of the activity is outside the marine protected areas. So we're busy working on this now with other local organizations to establish basically a corridor, so kind of another area linking up these two marine protected areas where whale sharks would be also protected. Aside from that, they don't really benefit from any protection in Madagascar, which is something we're working on, but it's also quite difficult because there's very little enforcement. One of the things we do that we kind of triggered and initiated with the project is a code of conduct. So it basically looks like this little figure, and it's a tool for anyone in the whale shark tourism industry, whether it's a client or a guide or a hotel or a boat captain. We're really pushing everyone to use this. It's very simple rules that will make the interaction with the whale shark easier, it's smoother, basically not disturbing the natural behavior of the whale shark. And that way, the whale shark is not going to be disturbed. It can stay at the surface feeding undisturbed. It can gather all the energy it needs from the plankton and the little fish it feeds on. And at the same time, people can take nice pictures. They can enjoy the moment with the whale shark while being safe. Because the thing often we don't realize is that everyone wants to swim with whale sharks and take amazing pictures. So often it's pretty crowded and hectic, and the whale shark is just not liking that amount of noise and disturbance, and it dives down and it will stop feeding. And people also often annoyed or angry, and it's just not a great atmosphere to promote in a place like Madagascar, where that kind of tourism is just growing. So we've implemented this in 2017. It's going really well. Most people respect it now. Some people still don't, but it still is a work in progress because not everyone has this knowledge about whale sharks. So it's one of the things we really do in the project to share what we know, just like I'm doing now, to explain to people why it's important to not bother whale sharks. And actually, it will just be a win-win situation for the operator as well. Tourists are just going to be happier. They will pay more money. They will recommend the operator, and it will also be safe. So hopefully, touch wood, no accidents with any engines or people or sharks. Actually, this particular code of conduct is now with the Ministry of Tourism to become an official law in Madagascar. So we're really hoping that's going to keep pushing things the right way. But like I said, there's very little enforcement. So it's just going to be just another law to follow, and we hope people will follow it. We also support lots of conservation initiatives. One of them is to train local guides, so capacity building with other guides from other companies. We partner with 2 operators on site, but there's of course more and more people now doing this business because it's lucrative in season. So through the project, I really try to share my knowledge about whale sharks so that everyone can do this, like I said, the right way, and also in the safe way, because of course accidents can always happen. We also, like I said, helping another organization to expand the 2 marine protected areas through sharing our data. There's many things we do to just support the development of sustainable tourism in Madagascar. And finally, the last thing, well, the third big aspect of what the project does is to raise awareness amongst youth, especially kids. So we have one school program that's actually being completely rewritten now because we have a bit of time. Schools are still closed with COVID there. And there's also a kind of larger community program made of little activities available for anyone who wants to join on the Saturday mornings at the beach, like this one. It was a beach cleanup. We have a great staff member, Bruno, who basically delivers these events and also the school events. And then Bruno also has now a bike with a chariot full of books and material, and he goes into the villages on the coast to spread awareness about why it's important to look after the ocean and protect these animals, before it's too late. So that was just a very brief introduction to the project. If you want to know more, you can look on our website and our social media. I have to admit, for the moment, it's a bit slow because we haven't been to Madagascar in more than a year now. So we're busy writing papers, analyzing data, trying to get funding for what's to come. But currently over there, things are a bit difficult with COVID. So we're just really hoping we can go back and continue this work, because it was everything was going really well up until last year. And my final message to everyone is really to protect what you love. So I expect anyone watching is loving nature and some special place or animals. So I would really urge you to get involved, whether it's through, activism or just beach cleaning or local organizations. There's so much to do now and so much help is needed, whether you just want to volunteer with the skills you have that you've learned professionally, whether you have some talent you want to offer. We need more people to continue our work. So I hope this inspires you, and thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Stella. Great presentation. Thank you for taking us into that world of that population of whale sharks. And the work that you're doing, and it's great work that you're doing, because you can't just have it unregulated. We need to protect them. They do need their space, and then we want to know about them. Like, we want to know where the babies are coming from.
So do we. Everyone wants to know, but we still don't know that one.
So anybody who says there's not mysteries or things left to discover have no idea what they're talking about, especially when it comes to the ocean.
There are lots of mysteries for whale sharks. It's like another talk in itself. So, for example, we don't know where the babies are born. We don't know where, because no one sees them. Sometimes they're being caught in nets or just randomly seen. The only information we have is that there was one day a pregnant female and it had 400 babies in its belly. That's the only information about pregnancy that we know of. But obviously the females need to be quite big, so it's 10 plus, 10 meter plus, and not the kind of sharks we see in Madagascar. And then also all the mating, we don't know about that. We don't know where it happens. We don't know when it happens, how often it happens, at depth or at surface. Yeah.
Amazing. And then I seem to remember hearing this before. Obviously, they feed a lot at the surface, but they can dive down pretty deep, can't they?
Yeah, so they can dive to at least 2,000 meters. That's all the tags have given up their life after that. So we know they go to at least 2,000 meters, and then the tags completely stop working. So they might even go deeper. But yes, one of the hypothesis is that they do these deep dives to kind of feed on other stuff that they might need, say, later on in their lives, or maybe some parts of the year. They might also do this to thermoregulate, so they get really hot maybe at the surface. Say in Madagascar, it's about 30 degrees Celsius, and then after a few months there, maybe they're just too hot, so they need to go all the way down. There's many different things that could be happening. There's also the whole magnetic field theory that you might have read about. It was out in the news a few days ago, that whale sharks need to be at the bottom to understand where they need to go.
Huh. That's that. There we go. Any students tuning in, maybe high school, maybe starting university, thinking about biology, whale shark, get into the whale shark field. We need to figure some of this stuff out.
Yeah, and get some technology, because that's really the limitation. Is we can get people to the moon. We still don't know where whale sharks go because no technology survives the depths they go to. That's the main issue.
Wow. So another question here about, you know, when you first came down there was tourism, kind of small tourism operations going. They were obviously doing things unregulated. Did you run into a lot of resistance when you wanted to get out on the boats and talk to them about regulations?
Yes, yes. It was quite intimidating because I was, quite. I didn't have the same knowledge I have now, obviously, because we didn't know anything. So it was just a matter of getting at sea and starting to collect that data. And thankfully, I had some support from the operators I still work with now, who were just convinced that would be a way to support the sustainable development of tourism there. But mainly it was, with the code of conduct. I remember in 2016, hosting a first discussion group with operators there who said, there's no way we're going to take distance from sharks, because obviously if the shark is there feeding, it's just easy to, tell your clients to jump next to it. Like, that's less work for you, and they see the sharks immediately. So when I started saying, we're going to impose some sort of distance that you have to respect, people were just really not keen, and there was a lot of resistance. But the advantage we had was that study of like what triggers the whale shark to change its behavior had been done in 2 places in Mexico and Mozambique by people we work with now. So we literally had that data to say, it's actually been shown that if you do this, you're going to see less change in the natural behavior. And I mean, those 2 studies were really the basis for all my work, because one of them was a study about what triggers behavior change in a whale shark. Say if it's the noise, well, we know now it's the noise of the boat and the number of boats. That's why we limit those. And there was also another study in Mexico about what do people want when they go on a whale shark tour. Is it to actually touch a whale shark? No, it's to have a long time of encounter with them. 100%. And that was really what they wanted. So you can take your pictures, all of this. So basically, if you kind of follow the results from this, it was like, well, we need to be sure the whale sharks stick along as much as they can so that people are happy. And how do we not disturb them so they stick along longer? Well, we don't trigger them in the ways we know they can be triggered. So it was quite easy to say that, but it was questioned a lot. But we really see the difference now when you have interactions where the code of conduct is really followed. Whale sharks can stay at the surface for hours. They just don't move, and you just need people to be kind of on it and not stay around too long and allow everyone to go. And so it's nice when it works out.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. Tourism, there's no reason why tourism and conservation can't fit together. It just has to be, smart. Make smart decisions from science, and then it can be a great for those local communities, a great incentive to protect their natural resources, because it's providing so many jobs and security.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm so glad that, you were able to get the data and then present that, and, it was accepted. That's awesome. I bet you're just.
I mean, it was. Sorry, I interrupted you. No, like it wasn't overnight. It was really a lot of, and I'm still a bit wary of going back because things might have changed, but it's just constant, one-to-one talks with everyone. And it's really that, supporting that small community there with, if we have new data about sharks, we tell them, and it's just how it builds up that everyone feels involved. So it's really, I think, really important to look after the people you work with and keep sharing your data as a scientist.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Stella, thank you so much for taking us into the project, taking us into that population of whale sharks. I bet you're itching to hop on a plane. I'm hoping it's soon for you and you can get back out into the water where you love to be. So thank you so much, Stella. It was an absolute pleasure to host you today.
Thanks, Joe. All the best.
All right. Thanks, Stella.
Bye.